So, which iPad is right for you in 2022? Well, that's the exact question we're going to answer in this video. We are here live, so if you do have questions, all you need to do is put a big Q in front of your question, and I'll be happy to answer as many of those as we go along. We got a lot to cover too, so if you're on the replay, don't worry, there are timestamps down in the description. You can jump around to the different sections, and please leave a comment because I'm down there. I read and respond to as many comments as I possibly can. So if you're in the market for a new iPad, or you just want to know, hey, what's up with these new ones, then stick around. We're going to be chatting about that in this very show. Now, I do have an iPad guide. If you go over to studiolivetoday.com/iPad, that's this one here. That's the iPad buyer's guide. And what you can do is check out the quick videos here. I've got a 1-minute update and a 5-minute update of the new iPads because Apple have just launched some new ones. We'll talk about that in just a jiffy. You can even use the Amazon and eBay links. Those are affiliate links. So if you do make a purchase from them, they'll break off a chunk and that helps out the channel. And the recommendations that I have just been updated for October 2022, they're all there. What is the best performance, the best all-rounders, and the best budget iPads? If you want to spoil it, you can jump straight over there now and see what I actually recommend. But we're going to go through it in detail because there's a lot to consider when you are in the market for a brand new or a second-hand or refurbished iPad. Because remember, whenever Apple launch something new, it makes the lower down, the last year's model, the refurbished ones, it makes them even more affordable and better value as well. So we will be covering all of that right here today. Let's jump in to the first section here. So Apple have actually done a bit of the hard work for us here. And if you are comparing iPads, you can actually go to the Apple Compare page. So if we jump over here to apple.com, you can select your country. I've selected US. I know my accent is Australian. I'm here in Australia, but I've gone to the US because that's where the majority of folks that are going to watch this video are going to be located. So we're here on the Apple page. And what Apple have done, if you click on iPad here, they've given you this cool compare option here. Because let's be honest, there are so many different, you got Pros, Airs, iPads, and iPad minis. There's 4 basic models. And then of those 4 models, there's a heap of different ones. There's a heap of different configurations, screen sizes, and all sorts of things that we're going to go into here today. But if you just want a quick way to compare, if we jump in here, check this out. We can compare up to 3 different models, and we're going to be using this throughout this video. So you can compare here the 12.9-inch brand new iPad Pro, the iPad Air 5th generation, and the iPad 10th generation. I'm actually keen to compare these two in particular, because if you've been watching along with the new Apple releases, this new iPad is very similar to the iPad Air. So we'll see exactly what's different under the hood and why this one is still $150 more expensive than this one. Intriguing. So we'll dive into that in just a moment as well. So we'll get into our next section. The first thing that we're going to go here is, the first question to ask yourself is, what are you going to use it for? But before we do that, let's say good day to a couple of folks who have dropped in live. Hello to Joe and Barry Glenn, who is here. Hello to Princess LDG. Good day to Frank Rowe. Hello to Beats by Rome. Thank you all for dropping in here. If anyone does have any questions, just throw them here in the chat as we go through. But let's start again. What will you be using your iPad for? So many folks in this community are using their iPad for music creation or for video editing, and you might need something a little bit higher level. But you know what? If you're using it to surf the web, if you're using it for email, if you're using it for basic, even just basic GarageBand use, I know many folks love their GarageBand, you don't need all the bells and whistles. You don't need to go high end. So make sure that you have a bit of an idea of what you'll be doing with the iPad, because that is going to factor in as we go through all the different things. Understanding what you're actually using it for is going to be super important. What I like to say when folks say to me, what iPad do I get? I start with screen size. So many folks are like me and you got big chungus fingers. You might need a bigger screen. If you want portability, you might want to go the mini. So here's some I've prepared earlier. So there's 3 main sizes when it comes to iPads. Here is the iPad mini. So this is actually generation 2. This is a fairly old iPad mini, and this is a 7.9-inch screen. They've increased that slightly. It's now 8.3 inches. But as you can see with the size of this one, if you've got fingers like mine, trying to tap the bits on there, this is basically the size of some phones these days. So for kids and for folks with smaller fingers, or if you just want something to use on the go to, do some ebook reading, or if you want to browse the web or do your emails, the iPad mini is pretty good. And mini users are pretty fanatical about their minis. They love their iPad mini. So hands up. If you're here in live or if you're watching on the replay, let me know if you've got some mini love. But the iPad mini is the first form factor. The next one up, now I've got this one, which is my 11-inch iPad Pro. We'll put it the right way around. So the next lot are between 9.7 inches up to 11 inches. So this one is the iPad Pro that you see here on the channel. It's the one that I use as my daily driver. This one is from 2020. So this is the last before the M1s. This is running the A12Z processor. So it's a little bit long in the tooth, but still does what I need. Am I considering a brand new fresh M2 iPad Pro? Probably, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So that's your second sort of size range, going anywhere from 9.7 inches on some of the iPads up to 11 inches or 10.9 inches for the brand new iPad model. We've then got the Chungus, the big dude. This is literally called Big Dude. That's what I call this iPad. This is a 12.9 inch. Now this is, as you can see, by the styling there, the big chin and the big bezels. This one is, look, it's so old, it's got my children from like 10 years ago on there. This one is one of the earlier ones. It's a second generation iPad Pro, but this is a 12.9 inch. I just wanted to show you that for something like this is a great if you're doing a lot more video or design work or artwork, or if you want to have big displays here for your GarageBand or Cubasis or Audio Pro. This is kind of what you want to go for. And look, am I a little bit bummed that when I decided to upgrade that I went for the 11 inch, not the 12.9? Yeah. If I could do it again, would I go 12.9 for my applications? Yeah. Am I considering a 12.9 if I buy the new iPad Pro? Once again, yeah. But you can see the size. If we do a three-way size comparison here, you can see that's your difference. So it's quite a different bit of screen real estate. When you go from 8 inches through 11 to 13, there is quite a lot more screen real estate when you get to the big chungus here. So screen size is what I say to folks to consider first, because every other decision you make kind of goes from there and works around that. So that is what I'm saying. Ricky Neal says music making and web browsing is what I would use it for. Also FaceTime. Yeah, and we'll talk about FaceTime. We'll talk about videos and cameras as well. Because I know, look, it's the cameras that we have in iPads, it's not just for grandmas anymore, taking photos at family functions. Sorry, hi mum. It's not just for that. They actually have some pretty amazing cameras. Even this one, a 3-year-old iPad Pro, you can see you got the camera array, you got the two cameras and the LDR sensor, LiDAR sensor on there. So you can actually use these for quite a bit more than just processing. And the new one, the new iPad Pro, even has a full 4K, full high-res video as well, which is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing for an iPad, absolutely. Let's move on to the next section here. So once you've worked out the screen size, you really need to work out what you're doing with it, and it comes back to that first question. So once you've worked out, yeah, I want the mini, or I want the medium size, or I want the large, what are you going to do with it? How much power do you need? Because there's basically 3 flavors of iPad. There's vanilla, there's there is vanilla, there's the general iPad. So this is the original iPad, it's just called iPad, or these days, the new iPad. Then there is your iPad Air, which is like a step up. That's your medium, that's like your going into college kind of iPad. And then you got your Pro, you're going into the workplace and you're actually wanting to do real tasks and you need all that processing power to really crunch some stuff. So that's your Pro model. So it goes between those 3. Let's compare them over here so that you can get a bit more of a feel for what we're talking about. So we've got it set up here. This is the default setup. This is the iPad Pro. This is the iPad Air. And this is the iPad 10th generation. Now your iPad mini is basically like a mini Air. We'll talk about that separately in a moment, because the minis, they have a different sort of way of doing their power. But when it comes to this, the main differences you have here, obviously you got your screen size there, but it all comes down here to the chip. So the A series chip, this A14 Bionic chip that's in the latest iPad, vanilla, that's a pretty powerful chip. It's a mobile optimized chip. It's not used in any of their desktop computers. The M1 and now the M2, that's Apple's brand new silicon. That's what they're using in their Macs, their MacBooks, the MacBook Pros. So that is like a desktop class chip. So that's going to give you a lot more processing power, the ability to run more processor intensive apps, requiring more memory. There's a lot of things that you can do with the M1 and the M2 that you can't do with some of the A series chips because they've just got more power. Along with that comes more things like more RAM. So we're not talking storage here, we're talking actual memory. So when we come down here, we go past the display. So yeah, there's the chips, there's the comparisons of the chips there. You can see the power and the battery there. It's not until you sort of come down here that you can see you've got video recording options there. The cameras, so there's that true depth camera you've got in the latest one. We've got the 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then we've got the landscape ultra wide camera. So the camera improves as you go up through the models from the Air to the Pro as well. The audio, so if the actual audio coming out of your iPad is something that you care about, if you're not going to plug in headphones or audio interfaces, that's one thing to consider as well that is going to be better. And then the connectivity. So the latest versions have things like Wi-Fi 6E, they've got Bluetooth 5.3, so they've improved the connectivity of those new ones. The other thing is if you want something with Thunderbolt. So Thunderbolt is only on the iPad Pros. It is not on the iPad Air or the general iPad. Here's the good news though. Every iPad now is on USB-C. So gone are the days of the Lightning iPad. So every iPad is now on USB-C, which is a good deal. So that's the main thing. To get to more detail, you need to go into the tech specs. The only thing I'll mention here that's separate between these in the tech specs is the memory setup. So if we come in here and we look at the tech specs of, say, the iPad Pro, the latest version, you do have to scroll down here and find this, but you can see here we've got 8 gigabytes of RAM on the 128, 256 and 512 gigabyte models. You got 16 gig of RAM on the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte models. So that's a lot. Like that's a lot. That's more. That's as much. That 8 gigabytes is how much memory I'm using on my Mac Mini that I'm using to do this video, this live stream right now. So that's a lot of memory for an iPad. If you compare that to what we were looking at, say the regular iPad, if we go into the tech specs here and we scroll down on this one, not only is your capacity going to be more limited on this iPad, but when we come on down and we look at the details here under the hood, and yeah, you do have to keep scrolling to find it all down here. Is it not even going to tell us? Here we go, system requirements. It's not going to tell us. So that's difficult. But it's 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabyte. I forget exactly how much memory it is. It is not going to have it. It is here. It is in here somewhere. But it really, it's the sort of thing that they don't focus on because it's not things that people are actually, that they think people are concerned with. Yeah, there it is. That's where it should tell us how much memory it has. It doesn't actually have it there, but it is not the memory powerhouse that you're going to get on an iPad Pro or even an iPad Air. So if you need a lot of memory, so if you're running lots of applications or you're needing a lot more power, then consider that as well. So that's your power between the three models. And again, it really just comes down to what you're using it for. If you're just looking for your basic things, so for my daughter has the iPad. She actually has the 8th generation. I said to her the other day, I'm sorry, you're now 2 generations behind. She only bought it 2 years ago. That's the way it goes with Apple sometimes. So the 8th generation iPad that she uses is fine for her because she uses basic stuff. She uses LumaFusion for some video editing. She uses GarageBand for a little bit of music. But most of her stuff is, let's be honest, watching YouTube and social media and the like. So it's pretty simple setup for her. The next thing we're going to talk about is storage. This one, if you listen to nothing else that John's rambles on about here today, you might want to listen to this, which is how much storage do you need on your iPad? Dan Ekberg, hello, said got an M1 iPad Air a few months ago, and it's nice. Yeah, the iPad Air sits right there in the middle. We'll talk in a little bit about what that means with the new iPad, which is quite similar to the iPad Air. But if you don't quite have the budget or the need for a Pro, but you don't want to go the entry level, the iPad Air sits right in the middle and is a good option for you as well. Let's talk storage. So you would have seen here when we looked at these different models, they all have different levels of storage that you can have in them. So the base model only has either 64 or 256 gigabytes. The same with the iPad Air, 64, 128 or 256. The iPad Pro, you can have storage up to 2 terabytes. So why do you need storage on your iPad? What's it for? So the folks that need more than, say, 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage are people like me. People who create music, who do video editing, who have lots of high high resolution videos and photos that they need to work on their device. Now, can you use things like cloud storage, your iCloud, your Google Drive, your Dropbox? Yeah, you totally can. So if your budget only stretches to say 128 or even a 64 gigabyte model, you're still going to be able to do things. But what you'll find is that you'll be spending a lot of time shuffling things around. But back in the day, so for instance, this one here, this iPad, my original iPad Pro 2nd Gen, this is a 64 gigabyte model, which is absolutely fine. It does a lot of good things, but the problem is that I run out of storage space on this. So I have to offload apps, I have to offload data, and I spend a lot of my time just shuffling things around. So when I got this one, I didn't go to 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes, but this is 512 gigabytes. And to me, that's the sweet spot for someone who is what I would consider a pro style creator. 512 gigabytes, half a terabyte, it just gives you enough room that if you're going to throw 100 gig of files on there, of a whole bunch of video files and audio and things, or you're sharing things, it gives you enough headroom, but you're not going to break the bank like you would if you went the 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte model. Now remember that if you do go the Pro here, you are going to get more memory if you do go the 1 terabyte, but you're also going to spend a heck of a lot more. And at this point in time, to be perfectly honest, there aren't a lot of apps that take advantage of even the 8 gigabytes of RAM of memory you have on the iPad Pro. So I wouldn't stress about that. I wouldn't go out there trying to go, I need 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes. To give you an idea, even on this Mac Mini that I'm running on now, I've only got 256 gig of storage. And yes, it does mean I have to do some shuffling around, but it works pretty well for me most of the time. So the thing with storage is don't go over the top, but also buy as much as you can afford for your budget at the time, because you don't want to be spending what could be productive or creative time shuffling files in and out and back and forth. There you go. Yeah, I'll get by with 16 gigabytes in Google Drive. Exactly. That's the sort of thing that I fear that people say. And if it was up to me, so if you were on the fence and you were going, say, between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, and you could afford a 256 gig Air or a 128 gig Pro, I would say get the better storage and the lower performance, so the lower model, because you tend to run. Storage is something you're going to run into all the time. The processing power, unless you are doing really high-end stuff, you're really not going to run into too often. I have the 512 and run out all the time. Yeah, got to have 50 gigabyte free. Great point there. This is more about, folks going out there and looking to buy a new iPad. But if you are using your iPad, please, for the love of your deity of choice, keep some space free. Every time I see folks run into problems like optimizing performance or applications crashing or just weird things happening, I go into their settings and I look at their storage and I look at their amount free, and it's always like 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes. Like there's very little storage space free. I'll show you where you can do that here. If you go into your settings of your iPad, so here's my iPad. I've gone into settings, and if you go to iPad storage, it'll bring up a little graph and it'll tell you. So at the moment it says I've got, okay, so this is embarrassing. I'm only using 156 gigabytes of the 512. So I could probably go a 256. I could probably take my own advice and go a lower storage on my next device. But always make sure you're keeping minimum 10 gigabytes. As Mars says in the chat, if you can keep 50 gigabytes free, obviously if you have a 64 gigabyte iPad, you ain't keeping no 50 gig free. But if you can keep 5 or even 10 gigabytes free all the time, because what the iPad does is it uses a lot of that for what's called swap files. So that it uses that memory as extra memory when it runs out of RAM. So do keep that in mind. All right, we'll talk about connectivity in a moment, but we've got a question here from Rockin' Pneumonia, who says, at what point should you consider upgrading? I have an iPad 6th Gen and it still seems to be working fine for me. Let's have a look. Let's do that, because we can do some live comparisons here. So we'll take a break here and do a quick comparison. So if you were rocking the iPad 6th generation and you wanted to consider, say, either going to the iPad 10th generation, the new one there, or maybe you even wanted the iPad Pro. I can't imagine you'd want to go all the way from that to that. But let's just bring up the 11-inch iPad Pro and the 10-inch iPad 10th generation. So the difference here, you get a bigger display. So you're running the A10 Fusion chip. Now, the A10 is probably going to be fine for most people. Anything A10 or above means that you're still able to update to the latest versions of iOS. So you're going to get iPad OS 16 on your 6th generation. But anything before that, you ain't going to get it. So your iPad Air 2s and Air 1s and iPad 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st generation are not going to get the latest thing. So you're going to be able to do that. Obviously, there's been big improvements in the camera and the difference in the chip. You're going from the A10 up to the A14 and you're getting yourself 1.2 inches of diagonal additional screen size on that one. You're also going from Lightning to USB-C, which we'll talk about in just a moment, the connections. You can get 5G instead of 4G if you want to. Still got your Touch ID on there and your storage, you can have up to 256 as compared to 128. Can use the Apple Pencil, can use Bluetooth keyboards, and obviously you can't buy these anymore, but the price of the newer ones is $449. Now, what I should have actually been comparing to, and I'll bring this up because we'll be talking about this in our next comparison, is the last iPad, the iPad, where is it? It's in the current models here. This is the strange thing. The 10th, both the 9th and the 10th generation are considered current models and are still being sold. The reason being that the 9th gen, this one here, is basically the last version that has a headphone jack and a Lightning connector. Everything past that is using USB-C. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So yeah, and look, if it ain't broke, as Princess LTG says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's, to be honest, the problem that I have right now. Not even a problem, but I want the new shininess, because who doesn't want the new shininess when it comes to these sort of things? But this device here still does everything I need it to do, and it's not even 3 years old. So for me, I kind of need to drink my own Kool-Aid and not race into upgrading. The only reason that I would race into upgrading is because I do this as my job, to show folks like you what you can and can't do with the latest model. And what is the actual difference? Sometimes I like to be the guinea pig so I can help folks out to do that. Hello, Brian J. Hope you are well. Sort of a related question. Do you all have issues opening GarageBand project on different devices? Project made on iPad, then opening on desktop? Yeah. And look, we can definitely talk about, we've got GarageBand Weekly coming up in a few days' time here on the channel. If you're not familiar, if you're new to the channel, we can definitely discuss that on GarageBand Weekly. Short version is iOS GarageBand goes to Mac GarageBand really well. GarageBand Mac, coming back to iOS, it doesn't actually share it the way that you'd think. And I've actually got a video here. If you search my name, Pete Johns, GarageBand Mac to iOS, you'll get a video all about that, and hopefully that will help you out with that one. We'll have a quick break and a quick drink and a quick cough. Let's talk about connections, shall we? So what we brought up before there is our different iPad models. And you can see here the difference between the last generation, the 9th gen and the 10th gen. The biggest difference, yeah, you got a slightly bigger screen there, and it's the Liquid Retina display. Apart from the fact that you're paying now $449 for your base level iPad compared to $329. So to me, and you'll see this when you go over to the iPad Buyer's Guide, the iPad 9th generation is still the best all-round iPad going. I got one for my mum about a year ago when it first came out, and it has not missed a beat. It has been perfect for her, for someone that plays a few games, uses it for Facebook and social media, watches some YouTube videos on there, and uses it for basic communications. That's all you need. You really do just need that. So I got the absolute base model, 64 gigabyte iPad 9th gen, and it works a treat and works for most people. So it's a great value device. Again, if you got the budget, would I go to 256 gigabytes of storage? Yes, I would. But you can see here, as we scroll on down, the main differences here, you're going from the A13 Bionic chip up to the A14 Bionic chip, and here's a dirty little secret. The A14 is almost the same as the M1. It's basically the very similar architecture to the M1. 6-core CPU, 4-core GPU, 16-core neural engine. So the A14 is no slouch. So if you need that additional processing power, you can go for the 10th gen. But the big difference is going to come into connectivity, which if we come on down here, we can see, have we gone past it? Was it right up the top? There you go. So the connector. So you only have a Lightning connector, which is the old version. USB-C is on the latest version. They've both got the smart connector, but you've gone from Lightning to USB. And the little thing that's hidden here that they don't really talk about, and that's why I do videos like this, is that the 9th generation iPad has a headphone jack. The 10th generation iPad does not. So you have a USB-C port only. The other thing that's really quite funny about this is that the iPad 10th generation supports the Apple Pencil 1, but guess what the Apple Pencil 1 uses to charge? Lightning. So guess what you need to do? You need to buy yourself a $9 dongle to connect up between your Lightning-based iPad, your USB-C based iPad, and your Lightning Apple Pencil. So if you don't want to live the dongle life, maybe going to the iPad Air or the iPad Pro would be something that you would want to do. But keep that in mind when you're selecting that a lot of folks, so if you're like me, I went through a pain point a couple of years ago when I went to the iPad Pro because I went to a USB-C connection, and all of my other gear, all of my powered hubs, I used my Lightning to USB 3 adapter, and I connected everything up using that. The thing now is you'll need to have USB-C for all of that. So I have USB-C based connectivity. Now, is it going to be much easier for someone like me who talks about this all the time now that basically all of the models apart from this sort of older iPad 9th gen are going to be USB-C? Yeah, it is. It's going to be a lot simpler to process because everything will be USB-C and not Lightning. Because here's the thing, Lightning's going away, basically, because the European Union has told Apple and other folks that they all need to be on USB-C for everything, including phones. So yeah, now is the time to embrace USB-C. And I've been saying for about 2 or 3 years, don't buy any Lightning-based gear. Don't buy any of the... and the cool thing is that folks like IK Multimedia, who make the iRig series, and a lot of the other audio gear is not Lightning-based anymore. Things like the Shure MV88 that I use, a little microphone, unfortunately, that's a Lightning connector. I don't recommend folks buy that anymore because I don't think Lightning's going to be around long enough. You won't get enough value out of it. Alrighty, we're going to go to accessories. We're going to talk about accessories in a moment, but before that, we've got a question here. How do you eliminate mouth clicks in vocal recording? You don't talk into your microphone, you talk to the side of your microphone, and you use a pop filter. That's about it. Most of your popping and clicking that you get in audio, and even if you're using, like a lot of folks use even just the built-in microphone on their iPad, if you want to bring it back to iPad-related stuff, the popping and clicking is the wind noise. It's called plosives. It's the P's and S sounds that go into your microphone. So if you want to get lower noise and less pops and clicks and whatnots, then consider that. Make sure that you are not right up on your microphone. And here's the difference. If I take this little fuzzy off, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Yeah, you're going to get a lot more of those clicks and pops than with some sort of wind shield protection so that I can prevent plosives. Remember, proper preparation prevents plosives. I don't think that's what anyone says, but I do now. I just made it up. Probably not. Let's talk about accessories because there's some cool new things. I use the accessory that I use and love. And look, my friend Jade Starr got one of these and said, Johns, you have to try one. And it's the Magic Keyboard here for the iPad Pro. Now, I've got the 11-inch iPad Pro. This is the Magic Keyboard. This was a $500 keyboard. Yeah, I know. I was like, what? And I did not want to buy it. But here's the thing. It is a game changer. If you have professional style workflows, this is a game changer. Because look at that. It slots in like that. It's hard to do when you're holding it up like this. There you go. It's snug. So this goes into my backpack. And look at that. That is completely airtight and good to go. And then when you open it up, boom, you're ready to go. You've got a full trackpad, you've got a keyboard, you've got everything ready to go. You've got a port on the side here to charge. So you've got an additional USB-C port to power up, which is super handy because it leaves your other port free to hook up to your USB hubs, to your audio interfaces, to USB microphones and all the rest of it. So something like the Magic Keyboard, whilst expensive, crazily expensive if you ask me, again, if you've got professional workflows, you've got to think in terms of what value is your time. And for me, the ability to have that there and just flip it up and go, it saves me literally like minutes, if not hours, most days and weeks, because it's just there and it's able to be used. I'm not fiddling around and faffing about connecting up external Bluetooth keyboards and external mice and all the rest of it. It's all just there. So I do love that. The other accessories, of course, we talked about the Apple Pencil. So the Apple Pencil is something that you can use here. Works with the Apple Pencil 1st Gen. So the way that breaks down is that your lower model iPads will use the 1st Gen pencil. That's the pencil, I should have brought my daughter, she has one, that has a Lightning connector in the back that you plug directly into your iPad and it charges from your iPad's power. It's a bit clunky because it means you can't charge your iPad and your pencil at the same time, which kind of sucks, but it's something to keep in mind. The Apple Pencil 2 is what's compatible with your iPad Pros, and that actually snaps onto the side and charges magnetically, so you can just throw that on the top of your iPad if you're using the iPad Pencil 2. The other thing that we've got, there's a new, with the Apple iPad 10th generation, there is some cool new, if we go to accessories here, there's some cool new keyboards and accessories that you can use as well. So if we go into iPad here in the accessories, this is the Magic Keyboard Folio for the iPad 10th generation. And this is only the low price of $249. Which, you know, is more than half the price you're going to pay for your actual iPad. But it's pretty darn cool. If you saw the little promo, it does a lot of things. It's a folio keyboard similar to the Magic Keyboard, but it folds in a whole bunch of different ways. And can be used without the keyboard as well. So it's actually a lot more versatile because it can be used as a stand as well as a full keyboard. So do keep that in mind if you are going with that. The other thing that I wanted to just talk about in terms of accessories, especially for creators, you'll need a way to get your USB devices into your gear. Now, I've talked about this 1,000 times here on the channel, and folks who are familiar with the channel and with the videos here will know exactly what I'm about to say, but that is that you need either a Lightning to USB adapter if you are connecting up to a Lightning-based iPad, so something like this this older one, this second generation iPad Pro. When I connect this up to USB gear, I use a Lightning to USB 3 adapter. I then plug that in to a powered USB hub, and I plug all my gear into that. So it's a two-step process, but once you're set up, it literally is just plug in, all your gear lights up, and you're good to go. So for my iPad here, I have a couple of things here. I have my Steinberg UR22C, and that's connected up via a powered USB hub that then goes directly into my iPad via my USB-C adapter. So if you're using an iPad Pro 2020 or 2021 or 2022, anything with the USB-C, what I recommend is something like this. A little Atola adapter that you can use here. So you can see there, this one has the USB-C plug. It has USB-C power pass-through, so you can charge up your iPad, and it has USB ports on here as well. So that means that you can plug in up to 3 USB bits of kit, plug that into your iPad, power it all up, and that powers up both your devices and your iPad, and you're good to go for like $12. It's a pretty good deal. If you are using a Lightning based iPad, you will need, if we come on down here, the Lightning adapter, the Apple Lightning to USB 3 adapter, and this is going to cost you $39 for a piece of plastic. And you're going to say, Pete, why do I have to pay $39 for a piece of plastic? Well, if you buy one of the cheap ones, thing is, with USB-C, you can buy the cheapest adapter and accessories you want because it's basically all the same standard. Lightning is an Apple standard, and if you don't buy it from Apple, what happens, and what has happened in the past, is that they can put out an update that basically bricks your old device and makes them unusable, or they'll work but they'll just drop out. Have you ever had that? This accessory is not supported. This accessory requires too much power. This accessory is going to make your life a living hell. If you've ever had those, then do consider grabbing this one. If you've got, and even if you've got an iPhone, I use these for my iPhones as well to hook up USB gear, USB flash drives, USB hard drives, a whole bunch of different things, microphones, audio cards, headphones, you name it. If you've got a USB thing, you need an adapter to plug your stuff into your other stuff. So that's the accessories there. We are on the final homeward stretch. If you're here live, once again, reminders, if you do have any more questions, just put a Q or a question in front of it. I'm happy to answer any of those. If you're watching on the replay, as many of you will be, then do leave me a comment. As I said before, I read and respond to every single comment on every single video because I'm a crazy, crazy person. The last thing I wanted to say here is you don't have to buy new. In fact, for most folks, you won't need the latest and greatest. I know sometimes you want the new shininess, but don't forget that you can actually buy a refurbished or a second-hand iPad, either directly through Apple or through someone like eBay or Amazon. Now, you can go third-party. You can buy from someone on Gumtree or on Craigslist or something like that. Keep in mind that iPads have had a life. Some of them may have had a swim. Some of them may have had a cup of coffee poured through them. You just don't know. So personally, and yes, I have a vested interest in this because these are affiliate links, but personally, I've had good success with places like Amazon or eBay, because you get buyer protection on both of those places, which means you can return things, even secondhand things. If you get sold an absolute lemon, Amazon or eBay, for whatever you may think of those two companies, what they do have to do is stand by their sales. Whereas you just meet a bloke on the corner and he sells you an iPad Pro for $200, it could be stolen, it could be broken, you just don't know. And you're taking the risk. All the risk sits with you. So if you're buying secondhand, all I'll say is buy from someone or somewhere reputable. So the cool thing is that if we come in here, so if you're in the US, you can use the iPad Buyer's Guide here. Once again, that's over at studiolivetoday.com/iPad. You can click on the link here. So we're in the US, you can click the Amazon US link, and this will drop you straight in to the iPad, the refurbished secondhand iPad section. And some of the deals that you can get on some of these secondhand iPads are pretty darn cool. You can even buy the new one. So say you wanted this one. This is that $329 one. That's the Gen 9 iPad, the absolute base model. Then you can grab that from there. But you can see here we've got other ones like the 2018 model, this one here. That's the 9.7 inch. If you're looking for something, more budget, that's $149. And whoever it was earlier that said they got a Gen 6, they love it. Yeah, maybe this is all you need if it's your first iPad, or if you're just upgrading a bit. Again, we've got the 10.2 inch iPad here, 32 gigabytes. So there's a bunch in here. The Apple 7th Gen here for $239. Again, these renewed ones are actually pretty good value. What about an iPad mini? We didn't give the mini a lot of love in this video, but if you're a mini lover, then you can grab an iPad mini. That's the 5th Gen iPad mini, and that's actually one that I recommend in my budget picks, because remember, if you come back over here to my guide, because this is what we'll finish on here, these are my recommended iPads for right now, and there is that mini 5th generation right here in the budget options, because it's a pretty good deal. And I've even got the mini 6th gen in this option here as our best performance, because they really are. Again, we didn't talk about it a lot because the minis are very similar to the Air. They're that middle of the range. They sit in the middle between iPads and iPad Pros and give you the opportunity to have a good quality device. I know Patrick over at the GarageBand Guide, he's been using a mini, one of the newer mini 6 gens, and says it's amazing. It flies along. The A15 chip is just ridiculous in that thing. So the mini is a good option there. So you can see you can come in here, you can go over to Amazon, you can find yourself some good deals. And even if you want the higher end stuff, look at this. The 2021 iPad 11-inch Pro with 512 gigabytes. So this is, if it's a 2021, that'll be the M1 model. 1,089. Now, if you're going to buy the M2 model, the latest one, you're going to be spending significantly more than that. So there's some cool options. Can't be shipped to won't send it to Australia. But there's some great deals to be had there if you are in the market and you're shopping around for any iPads or iPad accessories or anything else you want. And you've even got the eBay link there as well. So if you prefer to buy on eBay, you can do that as well if you go over to the Buyer's Guide, studiolivetoday.com/iPad. Very cool. Yes, it is easy to buy a lot of that. Easy to buy a lot of music gear and software, but buy what you need. You don't need everything. Hello, Coldacre. Thank you. G'day to you as well. We've got a question. We've got about 5 minutes left for any final questions. So if anyone would like to throw those here in the chat, please go ahead and do so. John Barry Glenn says, I recently bought a 12.9 iPad Pro 512 refurbished. The afters. We'll see if we've got the rest of that. There might be some more to that comment. Thank you. Yeah, look, if you want to support a way that if you're buying stuff anyway from Amazon or eBay or Thomann or pretty much anywhere, go over to the gear guide, studiolivetoday.com/gear, because anything you make a purchase from there, or even if you go into Amazon from there and you buy something else, they'll see that I've referred you and they'll break off a little chunk and send it our way. There you go. Refurbished, and the after-sales service from Apple is excellent. Yeah, that's the other option you've got there. If you don't want to go through Amazon or eBay, and if you don't even want that risk, go to the Apple Store. They sell a lot of this refurbished stuff. Even online, you can check it out if you want to dive in there and find a good deal on something refurbished. Then go ahead and do that. Hello, Dawn, Janice. Thank you for dropping in as well. We'll ask this one as the final question here, and then we will finish up. Rockin' Pneumonia. If you want to have a small footprint for your gear and you want to upgrade to an iPad with USB-C, what's the simplest way to hook up an audio interface? The absolute simplest way is, to be honest, if you want a really small footprint and you're using something like with an iPad with USB-C, is to plug directly into the USB-C. So a lot of your iPads, especially the iPad Pros and iPad Airs, have enough power to power up an audio interface. So what I find a lot of folks like to do, if we go back over to, let's go to the gear guide here and I'll show you what I would recommend. Here in the gear guide, the sort of devices that you can get that will directly hook up are things like your iRig, your IK Multimedia iRig. So this is the one that I currently use when I'm sort of want a mobile simple setup, and that's the iRig Pro Duo IO. So what this does is this connects up directly via USB-C, and it even comes with USB-C, USB-A, and a Lightning connector as well. So what you can do is just have this just sits up there with one cable that runs from this to your iPad, and you're away. So the iRig Pro series, not the standard iRigs or the iRig HD that just do guitar, but the Pro series like this, it's an audio interface that has balanced monitor output, so you can still plug it into monitor speakers and get full quality audio. You've got 2 preamps at the top there, really nice quality, low noise, high gain preamps there, or you can use it as a stereo input or 2 separate instrument inputs. So that's the easiest and best way. And then you really don't have to worry too much about power. Now, the thing you will have to do there if you use that sort of setup is you don't get the advantage of the power pass through. Because remember what I talked about before, if you want to hook something up to, let's say, multiple bits of gear, or you want to power your iPad at the same time, that's where you may need to live the dongle life. So for folks that don't like the dongle life, you won't like it. But that Atoller adapter that I talked about before, where's my mobile setup? This one here. Something like this little Atoller adapter in between will just give you a bit more flexibility. So with this one, you can plug any USB interface in there, plug just that one directly into your iPad, and then that one into power. And that means that everything's powered up and you've got 1, 2, 3 ports that you can use to plug in your USB gear and keep everything happy and powered up at the same time. So there's a couple of options. You can either go direct or you can use a USB-C adapter like that one. All right, that is going to do it for this one. I hope you got some valuable information. If you did, if you enjoyed yourself, throw the thumbs up there down below. And once again, if you're watching on the replay, we do love you just as much. Please leave a comment because I would be happy to answer any other questions you have. Look, it's a confusing thing. I get confused. I live and breathe this stuff. It's my full-time gig. And yet when Apple do something like release a new iPad, I have to sit down and go, okay, follow the bouncing ball. What's the difference? But that's why I update the gear guide. And that's why I update my iPad guide over there at studiolivetoday.com/iPad so that you can get just to the facts. Because Apple, bless them, they don't like their simplified naming conventions, and trying to work out what iPad is right for you is not exactly the easiest thing to do. So I've tried to make it super simple by putting my recommendations over at studiolivetoday.com/iPad. Thank you everyone for hanging out here today. And as we say at the end of every show, please be kind to yourself this week. Please be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you again real soon here on Studio Live Today. Bye for now.